السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وأسلم على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما نافعا. آمين. We were looking at some early works of the great political thinkers of this ummah. We were discussing about the works of Al-Imam Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah. Al-Imam Abu Yusuf, he died in 182 after Hijrah. The second work is the book of Imam Abu Ishaq al-Fazari, Kitab al-Siyar, As-Siyar, by Imam Abu Ishaq al-Fazari. He died in 186 after Hijrah. So same time period. As-Siyar refers to international relations, as we discussed previously. Al-Imam Abu Ishaq al-Fazari is from Sham, and he himself participated in jihad, in guarding the borders, and he's famous for giving tarbiyah to the soldiers near the borders of the Islamic State. His book As-Siyar is from the early works on this topic, and this book contains some great principles. And his book was accepted by the Muslim scholars, used by the Muslim scholars widely, due to his experience, practical experience with jihad and these matters. For example, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah writes, وَأَهْلُ الشَّامِ كَانُوا أَهْلَ غَزْوٍ وَجِهَادٍ. The people of Sham were the people of warfare and jihad. فَكَانَ لَهُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ بِالْجِهَادِ وَالسِّيَرِ مَا لَيْسَ لِغَيْرِهِمْ. So they had knowledge of jihad and siyar, the relationship between the Muslim state and the disbelievers, مَا لَيْسَ لِغَيْرِهِمْ, more than others. They had more experience. وَلِهَذَا عَظَّمَ النَّاسُ كِتَابَ أَبِي إِسْحَاقَ الَّذِي صَنَّفَهُ فِي ذَلِكَ. For this reason, the Muslim scholars, they accepted and they glorified the book of Abu Ishaq al-Fazari, because he practically participated in jihad, particularly in guarding the borders of the Muslim state. We said this before also, that the early scholars, in the early political thinkers, they were directly involved in jihad, administration. Sometimes they reached the highest hierarchy in the authority of a Muslim state. So they were not only theorizing based on vague principles, but rather they were involved in the political system. This book contains great principles. For example, and some of these, some of the masail which Imam Abu Ishaq al-Fazari has discussed are in contrast to what we believe generally. So this book contains some great fawaid also. For example, the bay'ah on the day of Hudaybiyah is famous, that the Prophet ﷺ took bay'ah from the Sahaba on maut, on death, that we will fight till death. Imam al-Fazari reports the opposite. He says the Sahaba gave bay'ah to the Prophet on remaining steadfast in jihad, not on death. So for example, he says here, he quotes the Sahaba saying, بايعنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يوم الحديبية على ألا نفر. We gave pledge to the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم on the day of Hudaybiyah that we will not flee, we will not run away from the battlefield. وَلَمْ نُبَايِعْهُ عَلَى الْمَوْتِ. We did not give him pledge on death. And then he discusses this mas'ala with his Shaykh al-Imam al-Awza'i, who is also a great scholar of Ash-Sham. So Imam al-Fazari asks his Shaykh al-Imam al-Awza'i about this mas'ala. He says, لو أن إماما أتاه عدو كثير فخاف على من معه فقال لأصحابه تعالوا نتبايع على ألا نفر. If there is a situation when the enemy is in great number and the ruler, the Imam, the Khalifa, he fears, he is fearful about his subjects, so he says to his soldiers, his ashab, his supporters, let's make a pledge that we will not flee from the battlefield. فَبَايَعُوا عَلَى ذَلِكَ. And they give him allegiance and pledge on that. Is it valid? Is it permissible? فَقَالَ مَا أَحْسَنَ هَذَا. Al-Imam al-Awza'i replied, how good is this? And he accepted this as a valid pledge. قال, then he asks, فَلَوْ أَنَّ قَوْمًا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ دُونَ الْإِمَامِ. Now if some people, yani the soldiers, they do it without the consent of the ruler, without the consent of the Imam, and they are in a situation in warfare where they are forced to make this pledge in order to protect the Muslim lands, in order to protect the Muslims. If they do this without the idhn of the Imam, will it be valid? Al-Imam al-Awza'i said, لو فعلوا ذلك بينهم شبه العقد في غير بيعة. He says, if they do it as an aqd, as a contract, without bay'ah. So he differentiates between contract and bay'ah. So they can do it as a contract, because Muslims can involve and engage in any contract, valid contract, which does not contradict Quran and Sunnah. So as if the bay'ah is conditional, it depends, or it relies on the idhn of the Imam, the permission and consent of the Imam, because this is a big decision. Putting the lives of the soldiers in danger is a decision in which Imam should also be involved, in which the ruler should directly be involved. So this is one example. Another example is الضرورة الشرعية في السياسة. The importance of understanding the Shar'i necessity in siyasa. As we said, siyasa is more about masalih, benefits, and understanding the repercussions, understanding the necessities. Sometimes a ruler has to act in dire need and necessity. So in that case, he may take weak opinions also to fulfill the necessity. And we know the famous legal maxim which says الضرورة تبيح المحظورة. Necessity, it legalizes the prohibited matters. Necessity can legalize haram. So in some cases, the rulers and the political authority has to take decisions based on necessity. It's very important to understand الضرورة الشرعية في السياسة. Al-Imam al-Fazari has talked about this mas'ala also. So for example, he says here, قلت لسفيان, I said to Sufyan, one of his teachers, الرجل المسلم يؤسر فيريدون قتله. if a Muslim is made captive and the disbelievers, they want to kill him, فَيُقَالُ لَهُ, and it is said to him, spread your neck so that we can strike it, we can kill you. Should he spread his neck? وَهُوَ يَخَافُ إِن لَّمْ يَفْعَلْ أَن يُمَثَّلَ بِهِ. Should he come forward or not? Particularly if he fears that if he does not do so, they may amputate his body parts. قال وما يعجبني أن يعين على نفسه. The answer which his teacher gives is, it is not good that he should support them on his own nafs, and he should not obey them in something which is against his own nafs. Another mas'ala which he says, قلت فالأسرى من المسلمين يريدوهم على أن يقاتلوا معهم عددا آخر. And if they force the Muslim prisoners to participate in a particular war, the non-Muslim state has Muslim prisoners and they force them to participate in a war, in a particular war against an enemy, against the enemy of the disbelievers. فقال ربما أرادوهم على ذلك وشرطوا لهم إن فتح لهم أن يخلوا سبيلهم. And they may put this condition that if you participate with us against our enemy, and if we win the war, we will leave you, we will set you free. فيرجعوا إلى دار الإسلام, and you can return back to the Muslim lands. فإذا شرطوا لهم ذلك, if they put this condition, فلا أرى بقتالهم بأسا, I don't see any problem in participating in this war. Because إنما نيتهم أن يرجعوا إلى دار الإسلام, because their niyyah, their intention is returning to the Muslim lands. فإن لم يشترطوا لهم ذلك, and if they don't put this condition, فلا يقاتلوا معهم, then they should not participate in this war. إلا أن يخافوا على دمائهم, except if they fear for their lives. To protect their lives, it is permissible. Now these masail, they point to the importance of الضرورة الشرعية في السياسة. So in siyasa, sometimes you have to compromise morality. So Islamic politics is not like any other political system in which morality does not play any role. Morality is important in our economic system and political system. Our authorities and our systems cannot exist without morality. But sometimes you have to compromise morality for darura, for necessity. Okay, because see, in principle, a Muslim cannot support a kafir, or cannot participate and support him in a war in which he is engaged, in principle. But here, if the niyyah is attaining freedom and returning to the Muslim lands, it is permissible. Now this is darura al-shar'iyyah. So this is how we can extract some great principles from these early works. And in our times also, the siyasa is based on the darura al-shar'iyyah. And sometimes the Muslim movements, the political movements, because of the utopia they live in, they don't understand these masail. They see a ruler taking decisions which may go against the basic principles of Islam, but these decisions may be justified by darura al-shar'iyyah to some extent. So because these political activists or thinkers, they don't have direct experience. They have studied Islamic political system from books only. They don't have direct experience with politics. They misunderstand these masail. For this reason, we said in the beginning that political thinking is the most difficult thinking. And it is a condition for a political thinker to get involved in politics, at least to some extent, directly. to have experience. Some ulum can never be understood from books only, from theory only. Siyasa is one of the examples. Another example is tasawwuf, spirituality. You cannot attain it, understand it only from books until you experience it, until you practice it. So this is important. The third work is again the same topic, as-siyar. As-siyar al-kabir by Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani, who does not need any introduction. Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani. He died in 189 after Hijrah. The famous theorizer of the Hanafi madhab, one of the greatest imams. He also served as a qadi in the Abbasid Khilafah. As-Siyar al-Kabir and other works of Imam Muhammad are considered to be the earliest works on political theory, particularly international relations. International relations as a field of as a field of knowledge or politics was discovered very late in the West. So Imam Muhammad rahimahullah can be considered as the founder of this field. His work As-Siyar al-Kabir also discusses about the political theory, the relations between a Muslim state and a non-Muslim state, warfare, and all these matters. So the main topics of this book are al-jihad, the principles of warfare, the ahkam of the spoils of war, the masail about the prisoners of war, the ilaqat of Muslims with the minority, non-Muslim minority living in the Muslim state, and those who are in a peace contract with the Muslims, or in the state of war. What should be the relationship? How should we deal with them? Fulfilling the contracts, mu'ahadat, how to enact the contracts, what should be the conditions. One of the most important topics discussed in this book is jara'imul harb, the war crimes. So war crimes and the usul principles and legal the laws of war crimes is also a new, very new subject discussed in the West. Imam Muhammad has talked about this very early in this book, Jara'imul Harb, war crimes, the rights of ambassadors, the punishments for the war criminals, so on and so forth. Yani these are the main topics of this work. From the most prominent masail discussed by Imam Muhammad are, number one, the falsafa of warfare with the disbelievers. What is the illah? What is the illah of jihad? Why do we need to fight the non-Muslim state or kuffar? So we have difference of opinion about the illah. No one disagrees about the jihad itself, because it is based on very clear ayat of the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The practice of the Prophet and the Sahaba himself, they involved in jihad. They opened the Persian and Roman empires for Islam. There is no debate in this. The discussion is about the illah. What is the illah? We have two main opinions. One opinion says the illah is kufr. We fight the disbelievers because of disbelief itself. And the second opinion, which Imam Muhammad has taken here in this book, is to establish peace and stability and to clear the hurdles in the path of Islam. So, for example, he says here in this book, he says that the warfare and jihad against kuffar is not because of kufr. Why? لأن الكفر وإن كان من أعظم الجنايات. Because kufr, in spite of the fact that it is from the greatest crimes, فهو بين العبد وبين ربه جل وعلا. It is between a slave, a human being, and his Lord and Allah. وجزاء مثل هذه الجناية يؤخر إلى دار الجزاء. And the punishment of a sin like this, a crime like this, is postponed to the abode of punishment, to akhirah. So the punishment of kufr is in akhirah, not in dunya. وَأَمَّا مَا أُجِّلَ فِي الدُّنْيَا فَهُوَ مَشْرُوعٌ. And whatever has been hastened in dunya, it is what is legalized in Islam. لِمَنْفَعَةٍ تَعُودُ إِلَى الْإِبَادِ. And the punishments in dunya and the ahkam which have been legalized, ordained in this dunya, are for manfa'ah, for benefit, which returns to the human beings themselves. This is what we said in the beginning. The Sharia is based on this principle of daf'ul mafsada and jalbul maslaha, repelling the harm and attaining benefit. وَذَلِكَ دَفْءُ فِتْنَةِ الْقِتَالِ. And the manfa'ah, the benefit in jihad is repelling the fitna, repelling the corruption. So qital in Islam is not only because of kufr. It is for repelling the dhulm and establishing peace and stability, clearing the path for Islam. So he has taken a very different opinion. Okay, because we cannot force disbelievers to accept Islam in this dunya. We can only give them da'wah. There is no la ikraha fi deen. There is no compulsion in religion. They are free to accept or reject Islam. But on the last day, there will be punishment. And if they want to live in a Muslim state, of course, there are particular conditions and rules. They have to abide by the law of the land if they want to live with us. If they don't want to live with us, they can leave and live wherever they want. And he also believes that jihad cannot be suspended. A Muslim ruler has to perpetually engage in jihad. He can delay it sometimes. He can agree with the non-Muslim state to delay the jihad for a year, for a particular period of time. But a Muslim ruler does not have any reason to completely abolish jihad. So, for example, he says here, يجب على الإمام, it is obligatory on the imam, on the ruler, on the khalifa, ألا يعطل الثغور ولا يدع الدعاء إلى الدين, that he should not suspend the borders, and he should always call the non-Muslims to religion, to Islam. وألا يعطل الثغور ولا يدع الدعاء إلى الدين, he should not leave calling to Deen. وحث المسلمين على الجهاد, and encouraging the Muslims on jihad. وإذا ندب الناس إلى ذلك فعليهم ألا يعصوه بالامتناع من الخروج. And when he fulfills his duty, it is after that the duty of the subjects, the Muslims, to obey the ruler in that. ولا ينبغي أن يدع المشركين بغير دعوة إلى الإسلام. And it does not befit him to leave the mushrikeen, the polytheists, without calling them to Islam. Or إعطاء جزية, or they pay the jizya if they don't want to become, if they don't want to accept Islam. Okay, so jihad, this is jihadul kifaya, jihad as a communal obligation. For example, when he talks about peace, al-aman, he says, إذا نادى المسلمون أهل الحرب بالأمان, if Muslims call the people of war, and the non-Muslim state, when they are in a state of war, they call them to peace, to treaty, peace agreement. فَهُمْ آمِنُونَ جَمِيعًا. They are all in peace. They can come in peace if the Muslim state gives them peace. إِذَا سَمِعُوا أَصْوَاتَهُمْ بِأَيِّ لِسَانٍ نَادَوْهُمْ بِهِ وَإِذَا نَادَوْهُمْ بِلِسَانٍ لَا يَعْرِفُهُ أَهْلُ الْحَرْبِ وَذَلِكَ مَعْرُوفٌ لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ فَهُمْ آمِنُونَ أَيْضًا. Yani in those days, they would give a call. The armies would be face to face, and they would give a call. They would call them to peace, even if they call them in a language which they don't understand, which the opponents, Ahlul Harb, the people of war, they don't understand, but the Muslims understand it. They are still in peace. Yani this can be accepted as a valid condition. وَإِذَا قَالَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ لِلْحَرْبِيِّ. If Muslims, they say to a harbi, a non-Muslim who is in a state of war, or a non-Muslim who is living in a place which is in a state of war with Muslims. If Muslims say to him, Anta amin, you are in peace. أو لا تخف, or they say to him, don't fear. أو لا بأس عليك, or they say to him, there is no harm on you. أو كلمة تشبه هذا, or any other word which is similar to this. فهو كله أمان. This is all aman. This will be considered yani enacting a peace agreement with this individual or the Muslim state. So you can see that Muslims from the early thinkers, the early great ulama, they understood these masail in a very profound manner. For example, jihad here. The great Imam Muhammad did not consider it a venture in which the purpose is to destroy the kuffar, destroy the kafir lands. This was never the purpose of these great ulama. The purpose is manfa, benefit for all mankind, particularly the Muslims. Enacting peace with people. However, if we are forced to fight, if our life, our deen, our honor is threatened, we will fight. And any other civilization, any other state, any other religion will command its people to fight, of course. But this is very rational and logical, what these scholars have promoted. So, for example, in taking support from non-Muslims, he says, لا بأس بأن يستعين المسلمون بأهل الشرك على أهل الشرك. It is permissible for a Muslim to seek support from non-Muslims or non-Muslims. Yani if you have a common enemy, you can seek support from them. It's not a problem. You can get involved in a treaty in which you have a common enemy. إذا كان حكم الإسلام هو الظاهر عليهم. However, the condition is the hukum of Islam, the authority of Islam should be dominant. And there are many other topics like how to deal with Ahlul Dhimma, the non-Muslim subjects, those who are in minority, living in the Muslim lands, so on and so forth. For example, the Iqama of Harbi in Darul Islam, a non-Muslim who comes from a land which is in a state of war with Muslims, if he stays in the Muslim land, how should we deal with him? Imam Muhammad says, فَإِنَّ الْإِمَامَ يَقُولُ لَهُ. The Imam, the ruler, will say to him, إِنْ أَقَمْتَ سَنَةً بَعْدَ يَوْمِكَ هَذَا أَخَذْتُ مِنْكَ الْخَرَاجِ. If you, يعني a harbi, an individual who comes from a place which is in a state of war with Muslims, and he stays for a long period. Non-Muslims can enter Muslim lands for education, for business. It is permissible. However, he stays for a long time. The Imam has right to tell him that if you stay 1 year from this day, I will take kharaj from you, and I can demand the tax which I take from my non-Muslim subjects. فإن أقام من حين تقوم إليه جعل ذمة منع من الخروج ويؤخذ منه الخراج فإن خرج قبل ذلك لا يحول بينه وبين ذلك. But if he leaves before that, يعني he temporarily comes and fulfills his يعني need and leaves, this kharaj and tax will not be demanded from him. Another book of Imam Muhammad is Kitab al-Kasb. Al-Kasb. Al-Kasb means earning in Arabic. Some students approached Imam Muhammad and requested him to compile a work on piety, zuhd. And they were expecting the Imam to write about spirituality. However, the Imam, he compiled a work on earnings. And he gave this message to the Muslims that the best path to piety is making your earnings halal. And this book became a basic text in understanding the economic matters of a Muslim state. Generally, for a Muslim and for the Muslim state. Kitab al-Kasb. We talked about the importance of economics in those times and in current times also. So in this book, he has talked about the importance of earning, the livelihood for a Muslim, and the different levels of kasb and its types, the different types of economic activities in Muslim societies, like the contracts, the agreements, and other matters. Like he has even talked about beautification of the masajid. حكم نقش المساجد بالجس. The ruling of beautifying the masajid by the tiles, using different tiles and colors, and all these matters which are related to the economic activity in a Muslim land. Another work, early work, is the book of the great scholar and faqih Al-Qasim ibn Sallam, Al-Amwal. Al-Amwal of Imam Al-Qasim ibn Sallam. He died in 224 after Hijrah. 4 after Hijrah. Again, this book is about the same topic of revenue. However, his book is more detailed than the book of Abu Yusuf. He added more details about the revenue. Amwal means wealth, the revenue of the Muslim state. So he talks about many topics like the rights of the subjects on the ruler. As I said, the principles must be understood from these works. What is permissible from the mal of Ahlul Dhimma, from the wealth of non-Muslim subjects. He talked about daraib, the taxes on the services. So for example, he says about the rights of the subjects on the imam. After mentioning the hadith, ad-Deen nasiha, the hadith, kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi, you're all shepherds and everyone will be asked about his flock. Yani these books are also books of hadith. In most of these works, the authors, they quote hadith with connected chains because they are early scholars. And it is also important or something astonishing to see that most of these ahkam are based on the practice of the second Khalifa, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, particularly the administrative affairs, the economic and administrative affairs. For this reason, from tajdeed of Islamic politics in our times or economics is going back to the early scholars, particularly Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu and his times, and understanding the administrative and political economic practices in his times. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him more time than other khulafa. And his khilafah is around 10 years. And it is in his khilafah that Islam spread in the world, and they opened the Roman and the Persian empires. So most of these scholars, they rely on the practice of Umar radiyallahu anh. And the ijtihad of Umar is the principles of ijtihad. And the methodology of Umar in ijtihad is one of the sources of understanding these matters. For this reason, some scholars compiled the ijtihadat of Umar separately, like the great Shah Waliullah al-Dehlawi. He has this work in Persian, which has been translated, about ijtihad of Umar, focusing on how did he understand these matters, so that we can take it as a guidepost. For example, he says here, he quotes the document of Umar, which he sent to his governor, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. In that, because there are different narrations, and every narration contains some additional words, which are useful for understanding this matter. For example, the wording which Al-Qasim ibn Salam has narrated here is that Umar said to him, أَمَّا بَعْدُ فَإِنَّ الْقُوَّةَ فِي الْعَمَلِ. The source of strength is action, not only theory. Quwwa is in amal, in action. أَلَّا تُؤَخِّرَ عَمَلَ الْيَوْمِ لِغَدٍ. And you should not postpone the amal of today to the next day. فَإِنَّكُمْ إِذَا فَعَلْتُمْ ذَلِكَ تَدَارَكَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَعْمَالِ. If you postpone, if you become lazy in action, in applying your authority, these amal, these responsibilities will pile up, and you will not be able to do justice with it. So فَإِنَّ الْقُوَّةَ فِي الْعَمَلِ. This is how Umar would give nasiha to his governors. About the taxes of Daraib, and this is very early now. It may be a boring subject. Taxes, we experience this in our age, but remember, we're talking about times when the West was in dark ages. Talking about taxes on services, talking about these matters was something great. So, for example, when he talks about Daraib al-khidmat, the taxes on services, he quotes the great Qadi Shurayh, who was a Qadi appointed by Umar again. And Qadi Shurayh, his practice of judiciary is also considered one of the sources in this mas'ala. So he talks about the taxes which he implemented on the different business activities practiced in the Muslim community. So the taxes on the shopkeepers, the taxes on those who would dig the wells and take water from the wells, so on and so forth. This is another important early work on the subject of political theory. Another and the most prominent and famous work is Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyya by Al-Imam al-Mawardi. Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyya by Al-Imam al-Mawardi. Al-Imam al-Mawardi, a great Shafi'i jurist, Mawardi, who died in 450 after Hijrah. A great Shafi'i Imam, he does not need any introduction. And he also practiced politics directly. And he reached the highest hierarchy in the political system. He was also ambassador between the Abbasids and the Buwayhids. We know after the Abbasid Khilafah became weak, the Muslim authority divided into small states here and there. So he practiced, he was an ambassador, he was a qadi, he was a politician. And he's the first scholar to establish what we call today constitutional law or administrative law. Constitutional law, yani the law which governs the affairs of the state, and administrative law which governs the administration. He's the first scholar to establish this, these principles in his book Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniya, and he has compiled other works also. Inshallah, after we finish this cursory look on the main thinkers and their works, we will move to some important thinkers like Ibn Khaldun, Imam al-Mawardi, Imam al-Juwayni, maybe 2 or 3, so that we don't prolong these sessions. And we will discuss about their political thinking and theories in details, so we can understand how original and creative these early scholars were. Not like our times. So Tajdeed was vibrant in their times. They established new subjects. They established new principles. They became the fathers of new fields of knowledge in politics, from which even the West benefited. So we need these types of scholars, original thinkers, mujtahidun, who can creatively engage with the waqi', with reality, and come up with solutions for the Muslim ummah. We don't need muqallidun. We don't need scholars who copy-paste from the early legacy, or who just imitate the West by changing the terminology here and there. So he's the first scholar to establish what we call today constitutional law or administrative law. Again, this book focuses on the importance of imamah, the role of imam, the duties and rights of imam on the subjects and subjects on the imam, the hierarchy of the political system, which is very clear. However, there are some masail on which he focused, which can be taken as the tajdidi effort of Imam al-Mawardi. Like, he talked about imaratul istila, the authority of a ruler who comes with force, a despot maybe. But if a despot comes and he's able to maintain justice, establish stability, his imara will be accepted. So now this is a discussion in our political thought. If a ruler comes with force, a despot, which means he does not represent the will of the subjects, will his authority be accepted or not? This is an ikhtilafi mas'ala in our fiqh. However, he discussed about this mas'ala very early, and he accepted the authority by istila. That's why we said darura is a very important principle in politics. And you have to look at the waqi' in those times. The Muslim ummah was already divided. The political structures were breaking. In order to put it together and save what could be saved, the scholars, they came with these solutions. Okay, so a despot may not look a good idea in our times, but in a particular reality, when you have to save the remnants of a political system which is in decline and already breaking and broken, it makes sense. So this is the darura which we talked about. He also talked about hurubul masalih, the wars of interests, warfare based on interests, which is a very common theme in current political system. And a warfare can be justified by many reasons. We can go to war for a particular ideology. Warfare can be done to repel the harm which may come in future, and many other reasons. And warfare is based on interests also. You have particular interest in a specific place, you go and you engage in warfare with them. even in civil war in a particular place. He talks about warfare with murtadeen here, with apostates, with rebels, to establish peace and stability in a particular place. He also calls it, he calls it hurubul masalih, the warfare based on interests. He also talks about al-iltizamat al-mutaqabilah, the corresponding duties. And whenever he talks about rights, he makes sure to give this message that rights are mutual. The rights of the ruler on the subjects and the rights of the subjects on the ruler. He calls it al-iltizamat al-mutaqabila. And these are very mature ideas and theories and principles which were discussed by our scholars very early. So you don't expect the subjects to fulfill the rights of the ruler if the ruler is not fulfilling. Rights are on both sides. As individuals also, don't expect the parents to fulfill the rights of the children if the children to fulfill the rights of the parents if the parents are not fulfilling. Rights means on both sides. So if you're expecting the husband to fulfill the rights of the wife and the wife is not fulfilling, and vice versa, it doesn't happen. Al-iltizamat al-mutaqabila. And in the rights and the legal structure of huquq, we have to maintain a balance. If the balance is not maintained, corruption happens. He also discussed about التفريق بين مهام الوظائف السياسية والإدارية, the difference between political and administrative duties. In fact, he's the first scholar to separate the political duties from the administrative duties, or politics from the administrative realm. He's the first scholar to do that. So these are the main ideas which he floated in his work. And he compiled other works also, which are very important in this mas'ala to understand the political thinking, like Tasheel al-Nazar wa Ta'jeel al-Zafar. He compiled this for the Buwayhi Amir, Jalal al-Dawla. And you can see how connected they were with the reality. Okay, and this is in our times, this is used as a false narrative against Islamic political system and political theory, that the works of the early scholars, they were response to the waqi', to the reality, as if this is something which makes their works irrelevant in our times. This is a positive thing, that they were connected with the reality and they responded to the reality. And we don't claim, we don't consider tajdeed in Islamic politics to apply the methodology of copy-paste. We take the book of Imam al-Mawardi and we paste it in current reality. We don't claim that. If anyone claims that, he is an ignorant person. What we claim is to understand the concerns of these political thinkers, to understand the principles, and we to extract the political theory from their works. So this is positive, that they were directly involved in the reality. They compiled works for the rulers. They gave nasiha. Okay, so this is not justifying the reality. Engaging with the reality is different from justifying the reality. Because if you read these works, you will see that they would sometimes give bitter nasayah to the rulers. We took the example of Abu Yusuf, how he engaged in an-nahyu anil munkar. Okay, same applies on Mawardi. For example, this Buwayhi ruler, when he wanted to take the laqab, the title of Shahanshah, the Persian, the ruler of the rulers, Malikul Muluk, he said this is bid'ah, this is haram, it is not permissible, because the only ruler of the rulers is Allah. Okay, so you will see the great examples of forbidding the evil in their works. So if they were justifying the reality, they were only pleasing the rulers, you would never find any example of these nasayah to the rulers. You will never find a nahyu anil munkar, forbidding the evil in their works. Okay, so Tasheel al-Nazar wa Ta'jeel al-Zafar. And also Qawaneen al-Wizara, which he compiled about understanding the ministries, the administrative aspect of the Muslim state. He also compiled At-Tuhfatul Mulukiyya, which is about the basic principles of nizam al-hukm fil Islam, the political system in Islam, understanding the mabadi. It's very unfortunate that most of the Muslims, including the political activists, they don't know anything about these works. Most of these works have been translated. It's very easy to go through these works and understand. Another book of Imam Mawardi is Nasihatul Muluk, Nasiha to the rulers. This is also a great work. For example, one chapter in this book is Al-Khilalu allati min jihatiha ya'ridu al-fasad fil mamalik wal mulk. The reasons of fasad, the qualities of corruption which happen, which creep into the kingdoms. How does a political authority become weak? How does fasad enter into the political system? Give me a minute. Yes. Another book in which he talked about some principles of political theory is Adab Deen wa Dunya. This is a comprehensive book about adab, etiquettes of Deen and Dunya. It is also a work of Arabic literature, because the Arabic in this is very eloquent, and he, in explaining the content, he has used great Arabic uslub. However, in this book also, Adab Deen wa Dunya, and this is a compulsory read for every Muslim, particularly those who understand Arabic. This is a beautiful work by Imam Al-Mawardi. There are some works which are very comprehensive, and if you read after the book of Allah, if you rely on that particular work, it will suffice you for your religion. Like the book of Imam Al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, the book of Imam Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Al-Dahlawi, Hujjatullah Al-Baligha, the book of Imam Al-Shatibi, Al-Muwafaqat, and also Adab Ad-Deen wa Dunya. If you only rely on this work, it will suffice you for your deen. Imagine. This book also contains some great abwab and principles about political theory. Inshallah, we will review this in details when we talk about Imam Al-Mawardi. For example, the famous quote, which is usually attributed to Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. It appears in the book of Imam Al-Mawardi, which he has taken from some hukama, some political philosophers. He says, some political philosophers said, Al-mulku yabqa al-kufri. The political authority remains stable on kufr, on disbelief. If there is justice, if the justice is present, if adl is present, wala yabqa al-dhulmi. And a political authority cannot remain stable on oppression, on despotism. And this has been attributed to Ibn Taymiyyah. And he changed the wordings. He said, political authority can remain stable even if it is kafir, even if it's based on disbelief, if justice is present in that structure. And it cannot remain stable even if it is Muslimah, even if the political authority is with the Muslims. When dhulm, oppression and despotism is present in that system. Al-mulku yabqa al-kufri wala yabqa al-dhulmi. A great statement. Apply it. So it is not only about establishing Islam, is not only about establishing the rulings of Islam, establishing salah, zakah, hajj, sawm, akhlaqiyat. Establishing Islam primarily means establishing justice, the rules of justice, justice between the ruler and the subjects, justice between the political structure, justice in the political structure, justice between the subjects, justice in applying the criminal law, so on and so forth. Justice is one of the greatest principles which makes a political system, or which gives stability to a political system. Okay, so another, and this would be the last point for today's session. staying permanently in a kafir establishment, or with kuffar, with disbelievers. We know the importance of hijrah. When you cannot protect your religion, your honor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to make hijrah. Hijrah is a great ibadah. However, if you are staying in a place, in a non-Muslim land, where your deen, your religion, your honor is protected, you can practice your religion, you can safeguard the honor and religion of your family, it is permissible to stay in that land. However, with karaha, with it's makruh, it's disliked. If you have the opportunity of going to a Muslim land, to stay in Darul Islam. So listen to this. And this is a very common question which is asked in our times. The reality has changed, of course. The reality of the world has changed. Now we don't have clear Darul Islam and Darul Harb. We have the nation states and stuff, without going into the details. But this is a very early problem which was discussed by the scholars. So for example, Imam al-Mawardi, in his book Al-Hawi, which is an encyclopedia in Shafi madhab, in Kitab al-Siyar, in that also has a chapter or a book about the warfare and the relationship between Muslim state and non-Muslim state. He says, فَأَمَّا إِذَا كَانَ الْمُسْلِمُ فِي دَارِ الْحَرْبِ مُمْتَنِئًا فِي أَهْلٍ وَعَشِيرَةٍ. When a Muslim is living in Darul Harb, now note this term here, he's not saying Darul Kufr only, Darul Harb. And this non-Muslim land is in a state of war with Muslims. He is in Darul Harb, but he is safe in his family or his relatives. Yani his deen, his honor is safe. فَإِن لَمْ يَأْمَنْ الْإِفْتِتَانَ عَنْ دِينِهِ. If he cannot safeguard his religion in that situation, he is in his family, he is living in a Muslim community, let's say Muslim community, but he cannot safeguard his religion. كَانَ فَرْضُ الْهِجْرَةِ بَاقِيًا عَلَيْهِ. The obligation of hijrah remains obligatory on him. And the obligation of hijrah remains on him. Because the first priority is protecting our deen and honor. وَإِنْ أَمِنَ الْإِفْتِتَانَ فِي دِينِهِ. But if he feels safe in his religion, iftitan, yani he does not fear any fitna in his religion. He does not fear that I will be forced to change my deen. I will be persecuted for my religion. I will not be able to practice my deen freely. سَقَطَ فَرْضُ الْهِجْرَةِ عَنْهُ. The obligation of hijrah is dropped regarding him. So there is no obligation of hijrah on him. لِاخْتِصَاصِ وُجُوبِهَا نَصًّا بِالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ. Because hijrah is specific with the weak mustad'afin by nas in the Quran, by the text clearly. Mustad'af is weak, who cannot freely practice his religion. وَكَانَ مَقَامُهُ بَيْنَهُمْ مَكْرُوهًا. But his residence with them, living with them, will still be considered disliked if he has the opportunity of going and living between Muslims. لأن المقام على مشاهدة المنكرات منكر. Because living in a place where you're exposed to clear evils and munkarat, and witnessing these munkarat and getting desensitized with these munkarat is munkar in itself. It is evil in itself. وَالْإِقْرَارُ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ مَعْصِيَةٌ. And accepting the batil is a sin. So even if you're safe, your religion is safe, you're able to freely practice your deen, there is no persecution, you can safeguard deen, religion, honor of your family, there is no obligation of hijrah upon you. But still, it is better if you live in a Muslim country, Muslim society. And this was in their times, yani. Now the reality has changed, but we can learn a lot from these ahkam still in our times. Why? Mushahadatul munkarat, witnessing the munkarat, being exposed to great evil, and then getting desensitized from that evil. Why is it problematic? Because لأنها تبعث على الرضا. Because it creates rida in an individual, yani as if you are, it creates acceptance. Slowly you start accepting this reality, particularly the next generation. Okay, so لأنها تبعث على الرضا وتفضي إلى الولاء. And eventually it will lead to allegiance. It will lead to accepting the system and not feeling any not feeling any sense of responsibility towards changing the system, because you are living in an alien reality. You are not living in a Muslim society. So you start accepting everything, and eventually this becomes wala. This becomes a form of allegiance and accepting the reality, getting desensitized from the evil. That's why he says it's makruh. He does not say it's haram. He says it's makruh, yani disliked. It's better to live in a Muslim society where you can raise your children, your families in a confident atmosphere. Now, so these were some early works, and you can see how rich are these works. We only quoted some, the main early works, particularly compiled in the 2nd century after Hijrah. They are rich in content. We can extract the principles, political theory, if we engage with these works in a proper way. We can understand how connected they were with the reality. Some of these scholars, they served as judges, and they served at the highest posts in the political hierarchy. They gave nasiha to the rulers. They engaged in politics. So we have a lot to learn from these works. Inshallah, from the next session, maybe 2 or 3 sessions, we will take some prominent political thinkers and try to understand their political thinking in a deep manner, so that we can learn from them, and also we can understand the methodology of their engagement with these matters, and we can also understand how to change our situation in the 21st century Muslim Ummah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from shubuhat and shahawat, desires and doubts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His beautiful names and exalted attributes to cure our sick and to forgive all our dead. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala nabil ummi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.